welcome to Back Issues. I'm Tiffany.
I'm Ethan.
I'm Ben.
And today we're going to be covering another Tom King book on this couch.
Woo. Yay!
Because, you know what?
Because Tom King is king.
Tom King, I like Tom King. I didn't read his Batman run, so for a lot of people, they don't like Tom King, but some people love that run, so I don't get into that. But I like Tom King because I like a lot of his maxi series, right? Like he did Strange Adventures, he's done Mr. Miracle, he did Vision, he's doing Human Target right now, and he also did a series called Supergirl, The Woman of Tomorrow. Don't forget, he wrote that Walmart book.
Right.
The Superman Up in the Sky Walmart book that sold
Yeah,
really well.
He could do some more upbeat stuff.
Yeah, and like Sal loves that book and his take on Superman. And that.
I mean, it's a fun read.
Yeah, and like that level of hope, right? Now, Tom says that like when he wrote some of the other grimmer stuff, he was in like a different part of his life, right? And so like now he's coming out to the other side where he's looking to write some more things with like a little bit more hope to them, right? Mm-hmm. Now, does that mean that there's not going to be any like pain and suffering in this book? No. This is not
Definitely there will be.
Yes.
I mean, there was pain and suffering in the Superman Up in the Sky book.
Exactly. And Tom, as you know, has been kind of working primarily with DC. He's doing some creator-owned works. He did Vision, right? But like, honestly, he's been floating around DC for a while, and he's not the kind of guy who goes like, I want to write for this character. It's kind of like, who could use my help? Or like, he'll be handed a project, or like a suggestion will be made. Mm-hmm. If you want to know more about that, you can check out the interview that Sal did with Tom King over on ComicPop Returns. We'll put a thing somewhere. You can go watch it. It's actually really fun because Sal and Tom have like a really great rapport, and I find it to be very engaging. To the point where you're like, oh god, I just listened to the whole thing.
Well, they're both very intelligent speakers.
Yeah. Those are my favorites.
I don't watch his other stuff for the ComicPop Returns for those, but I do watch those.
Yeah, those are the best. This is written by Tom King with art by Bilquis Evely, who I love because she did art for the Sandman universe. So I was very familiar with her art, so I was like, I cannot wait to see what this book is going to look like. I can't wait for you guys to see what this book looks like. We got to give a shout out to her colorist, Mateus Lopez. She brought him onto the project because like he knows her work. You know what I mean? Like he's just like, this guy gets my work, and he does. And he, like, this is an incredible team on this book.
It's like one hand drawing and coloring at the same time.
Almost, yeah. She does all of her. She does the pencils and the inks and gives it to the color, so you skip a whole step.
Oh wow.
Sorry, inkers.
We don't need you.
Didn't need you for this one, but we do need you for other ones. Have you ever tried to ink something? Oh my god. My hat's off to them. Screw that. That is too hard.
It's hard enough coloring between lines.
Yeah.
When you have to make the line.
Well, you got to make the line, but you also have to capture the pencil line with the ink. So you need the ink to mimic what the pencil looks like, but because otherwise, when you lift it away and like only have the inks there, it'll look dead. It won't have any life that the pencil had.
Right.
So I don't know how they do it. Anyway,
magic. It's got to be magic.
Art magic. Woo! His editor, Jamie Rich, who had been the editor for Batman, moved over to the Supers, and like they were talking, and he was like, "What can I do? What can I do in the world of like Superman? I did the Up in the Sky thing. What else can I do? Like, what do we got going here?" And they're like, "Well, honestly, like there's a Supergirl show, but we're probably going to get rid of the book because nobody buys Supergirl."
Womp womp.
Womp womp. Sorry, Supergirl, you're just not that popular apparently. So Tom's like, "I'll do that. Why not? I'll give it a shot," right? He's in the 90s, he read like the John Byrne run, where I think you guys know about.
She's a goop monster?
Yeah.
That's the only Supergirl I know.
What?
For some reason, we've done a lot of books for that time period.
No! It's a weird moment in time for her, but you know, it's fun and it's silly and whatever, but no.
Hey, we keep going back there though.
Yeah.
We do keep going back there.
Kara Clayface.
Listen though, if you instead watch like the Superman animated series and Justice League Unlimited, that is not the Supergirl you know. We will get little references, little winks and nods in this to that
Matrix Supergirl?
To Goopy Supergirl.
Goopy.
Gooper Girl?
No, we're not gonna go with that.
Took me a minute. I was like, why would you call her Gooper Girl? That doesn't make,
no.
Super.
Yes.
Gooper.
Hi.
I got it.
He's there. He's with us. It's like, all right, I'll do like a 12-issue maxi. They're like, no, 8. She's not going to sell 12, 8. You might have 8.
I don't understand that. Why would she be able to sell 8 and not 12? They're just like, people are going to get bored after issue 7.
They're going to fall off the book. They're not going to read it. 8.
But if it's a good book, wouldn't they want more?
You would think that, but that doesn't always happen.
If it's not a good book, why would you even bother?
They also don't trust it's going to be a good book.
Additionally, this is during a time period where the books are $5. So So I mean, like they still are occasionally. But
It's the hierarchy. They're like, look, if it's not Batman and
Yeah.
it's not the Trinity,
They're-
how much are people really going to buy it?
They're already sort of concerned because it's a Supergirl book. So they're like, you're not getting 12. I would have loved to have seen 12. However, the constraint of having 8 gave us an incredible story. Let's be honest, okay?
Okay.
So, all right. So Supergirl, this is not your Supergirl. So
Right.
this is more the, like, came from Krypton.
Right,
Also,
she was
also in a rocket.
Okay.
We'll get there.
But she knew Krypton, right? She wasn't like a baby,
Yes,
right?
yes,
That's
and
what
we
I
will get
remember
into that
Sal
because
saying.
what's nice about this book is that, listen, I'm not like a die-in-the-wool Supergirl fan, so I don't know you guys who are out there who are, because I know you exist. I know you're out there.
There's
We
apparently
see
not
you.
very many of them though, because they're not buying it.
Right. Now, this also did come on the heels of Heroes in Crisis.
Aha.
But this doesn't reflect that at all, okay?
Right. Right.
Yeah, but people were really upset about that.
This is also like Infinite Frontier, but like, listen, it's a good story. It's an in-continuity story too.
Oh, really?
This is in continuity.
Oh, okay.
All right.
It's Tom King playing around in continuity.
Uh-oh.
Woo! Uh-oh. No, it's fine. I don't know if you're a die-in-the-wool Supergirl fan if you look at this book and you're not if you're not on board for the lens at which Tom looks at Supergirl. I look at this and see a lot of hope and a lot of like character growth and like just kind of taking her back to her roots. And that's really what Tom wanted to do. He described it as like, they just keep adding things onto her, like she's this or she's that or she's this. He's like, they're like barnacles and I'm trying to like get them all off and I'm gonna bring her back down to what she
Scrape the barnacles off Supergirl.
just get that there. Oh, look at you. There you are. Look at that.
Oh, there's that hull.
We found it. I feel like if you are a fan of Tom King's work, especially his maxi series, if you are a fan of Vilkas Evely's artwork, or you're just kind of interested in Supergirl, you can jump into this, which you guys will be the judge.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I'm not going to hide this. I love this book.
Ah.
And I read it for off the rack, and then I read it again leading up to this, and it wasn't like reading it for the first time. I was just as excited reading it as I was the first time.
Did you get to explore new things when you were reading it the second
A
time?
little bit, but it was more just, I was just like, so like, I was just enjoying the ride again. I was like, this is such a great ride. I can't wait.
All right.
Okay.
So you might be a little biased.
I might be. So like, I'm going to tell you the story as plainly as I can, but I'm going to get excited at times. But you guys decide what you think of the story. But like, I still say you should go pick it up and read it. I'm just going to say that now.
I mean, I'll say this. It looks like the childlike Empress. I'm
Right.
like, I'm on board for that.
Okay,
Whatever that
so-
concept is.
This was the image everyone saw when this book first came out. This is the actual cover. This was like the image that was everywhere, right? And whatever you immediately get off of this, She-Ra vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me tell you right now, this is a space western.
Ah. Okay.
Tom King writing a Western?
Yeah.
My God.
Yes. So we're gonna do a little combo of digital and physical because Sal and I both thought we had all of the physicals, but we don't. And the trade is out now. It wasn't when we filmed this. But let's jump into it. First thing you need to know is this book's just gonna take place in deep space. We're not going to Earth.
Oh.
Good.
We're just not gonna live. We're not going
So
anywhere
I'm
near
not going
Earth.
to know what's
Because
going on at all.
there was,
And that's fine. That puts everyone on this equal footing.
Right.
and there's very little Earth in Superman up in the sky.
Right?
I like these characters being in space.
Okay, so this girl that you see on the front here, her name is, I called her Ruth the entire time, only to find out from that interview that like it's actually Ruthie or Ruthie.
Oh.
Tom had a niece named Ruthie, so he decided to name the character after her.
Okay.
He's like, I'm done naming characters after my kids. I don't want them to go through the things that like I put my characters through, but I'll put my niece through that. That's fine. But then
I-E at the end or an E at the end?
it was a Y, right? It was like
Oh, that's Ruthie.
Ruthie, right? But then his son was like, put an E on the end of it. So then he just started calling her Ruthie. So we're going with Ruthie because that's what Tom said.
Okay.
You can check the interview.
Got it.
It's a
could
nice
also be
space
Ruthie.
name.
It could also be Ruthie, but I spent the entire time I called her Ruth. I was like, Ruth, it's just Ruth, right?
Well, I don't understand. How is it spelled?
Ruthye.
Oh, I see. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's
It's like ye old Ruth.
not sure
Yeah.
how that would
Ruth
pronounce.
Ye.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just said Ruth. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's just putting that stuff on the end.
He's
but
just
we're
putting
gonna call
crap on the
he's
end.
putting the crap
Those
on
letters
the
don't
end.
mean
But
anything.
it's
Those
the
are
garbage
bullshit
letters.
letters. Yeah.
Shut up, letters. Shut up.
It's like I was spelling through with a T-H-R-U,
Yeah.
T-H-R-O-U-G-H.
Yeah.
Instead of just T-H-R-U.
Yeah, well, that G and that H, this trash. They're just hanging out there. It's just to get a higher Scrabble score.
Exactly.
That's all they're there for. what you also need to understand about Ruth is she has a very specific way of speaking, and this is also a return to Tom King, a return to narration for Tom King. He hasn't really used it in some of his more recent books. There's a little less of the narrative bubble going on there, but with this, he returns to it, and I think that's why I like it so much. It's funny because on Off the Rack, specifically, we were talking about the excitement for this, and we actually, at one point, Tom jumped on to like promote it right before it came out, which was like in June of 2021. This is really recent. And like I was like, I literally am on camera with him, and I was like, listen, Tom, I gotta tell you, I am excited for the story and the book, but I am more excited for the art. I'm sorry. I'm just so much more excited for the art. I read this first issue, and then we reviewed it, and I was like, all I could say was I like reading the words in this book, because like I can't put into words how much I enjoy the prose.
I remember that.
Yeah, this is the book that made me say something so stupid.
And everyone was just like, that needs to be the bubble cover or the caption for this book.
I like reading the words in this book because I really do, and I loved it just as much the second time.
And normally you hate words.
I hate words. I hate them. They're just garbage.
Get them out of there.
Show me the art. I do sometimes just want to see the art, but no, comics are. This is a perfect for me distillation of comic and art. Right?
Yeah, if it could just be numbers for me, I mean, there we go.
Okay.
Just numbers.
I can't deny that to you. What you're also seeing is in this narration, it's a story that Ruth is telling us after the fact.
Ruth is invented for this book.
Ruth I is invented for this book. So Ruth I's story begins on her home planet where her father is stabbed by Krem of the Yellow Hills. You'll never forget that name if you read this book because of the number of times Ruth I says it.
Krem of the Yellow Hills.
Krem of the Yellow Hills. Who is a king's agent, which in this fictitious world, on this planet that they live, Ruth I and her family are rock farmers.
What?
They are rock farmers. They literally plant the seeds of like pebbles, and then rocks grow, and they harvest the rocks.
Do they herd them too?
No, they grow.
Okay, because a rock farmer could also be like a rock herder. You know, you have like a lead rock and you go out to a field.
These are like...
They grow them from the ground.
These are like watermelons.
Yeah.
They just sit there.
I suppose. It's really not important. It's just mentioned quite a bit, and like really what it's doing is just making you feel like there's an established world.
Yeah.
As you read that, you're like, okay, there's
rock farmers.
Rock farmers.
I know the word rock and I know the word farm, but I've never seen them together.
Right.
And this makes me think of that I'm in space.
They're not quite dirt farmers.
No.
They're rock farmers.
No,
There's a little more going on. But
right, kind of.
Probably low class, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and like she'll mention at one point that like, you know, like there would be like she has many brothers, and so like there would be like bathing day like whatever month, like once per month or whatever, and so by the time she got to the water, first of all it was cold, and second of all it was filled with all of their filth. So like they would go to town and like laugh at all of the you know upper echelon individuals who would like be turning their noses up at them because it's like they've never seen an honest day's work in their lives, and like that's who we are, right?
Okay. Isn't there a stream nearby you could all bathe in, or?
Listen, I don't know.
Apparently not.
Ruth I lives by the letter of the law of her family and like her lands, right? Like that's the way she was raised.
That letter is we bathe once a month.
We bathe once a month. We're stinky people. But
helps the rocks.
Ruth I is the one who finds her father, right? And she's like, she realizes it was a king's agent who slayed her father, which in the world that these people live on, there's a king, and the king's agents basically go around and attempt to weed out people who don't like support the king, and like Krem has his way of doing it, and we'll find out about that later on. But like in that, like, so if you go against the king, you're killed, right? But like Ruth I's like, my father was a good person, he was an unarmed man, and when she comes upon him, he has a sword in his chest. And it's clearly a king's agent's sword, and so she figures it all out.
Did they leave the sword behind?
They left the sword, and she questions that.
Yeah, it's a message.
Funny that she mentioned that. She's like, it was not hard for me to pull this out. I don't know why they left that. But like, so she goes home, her family, like her brothers all have like huge like, oh, I'll go and hunt them down, and like blah, blah, blah. And they're all like, you know, trying to one up each other with their plans. And like, it's amazing because it's like she and her mother are sitting at the other ends of the table just kind of staring at one another while her brothers are all like up in arms about what will happen and what they're going to do to resolve this and to like find justice for their father. And by the end of it, they realize, you know what, it's probably for the best to just let it go and not get involved with the king's agent, and we'll just go back to farming and everything.
We actually can't really do anything. We will die if we try.
So Ruth I has decided she's gonna go and do it herself, right? She runs into her mom outside. Her mom's like, you know, like she tries to stop her, but not really.
Oh no, don't.
Oh wait, stop.
Maybe you should listen to your brothers, but like Ruth is like, my calling is out there and I have to do this. And she's like, all right, cool. You should probably take your late father's mount because I don't want to take care of him anymore. So
whoa, that mount looks awesome.
Yeah, we will never see that thing again.
Oh,
you can't do
come
that.
on.
Listen.
You can't draw that cool thing and then not show it again.
Bilquis also like when Tom pitched that they were doing a Supergirl book to her, basically. He's like, I never really spoke to her. It was all like emails. He was like, this is what we're gonna do. He had like a loose idea of what he was gonna what he wanted to do with the book. And then essentially she sent back like a mood board of like, these are the things I would like to draw. And it's like a lot of like Mobius stuff from like, Mobius, the French artist. This look to her art is very inspired by that. A lot of 70s sci-fi stuff like that. Okay. And so he was like, okay, I have to give her cool things to draw. Can do. There'll be something later on. I'll tell you a story about how it came to be on the page. So also,
I have a question about the world.
Yeah.
What do they do with the rocks
we don't
that
know.
they grow?
It is
Do they sell them?
Presumably,
are there buyers for these rocks?
Presumably, they must take them to market.
For what purpose?
Because here's the question, though: is a rock really a rock?
Oh, or they call it rocks, but it's actually the name of like some like
thing
to eat.
Now that
food
said, later on they mentioned the word
like
boulders
potatoes.
that had grown too large. So I'm like, it's so hard to tell. It's so inconsequential, but it's just a thing that Tom King's like, this is the world. Get used to it, right?
Yeah.
Ruthie brings the sword with her, this King Agent's sword, and essentially she's like, this is her payment to people, right? Like she's like trying to find someone, like the biggest and toughest person on the planet, to come with her to help her kill this person or to get justice on Krem.
And they get to keep the sword.
And they get to keep the sword. So he meets this big dude. Big dude's like, yeah, all right, I'll take the sword. Sword's pretty dope. And what I will do is I'm gonna go kill him without you, because like you're just gonna get in the way. But trust me, you'll know that he's dead. I will take care of this. She refuses that. He slaps her in the face.
Oh.
And she falls to the ground, right? This is the point in the story upon which we're going to figure out, why is this called Supergirl? Where the hell is she?
Where is Supergirl?
Where is she? She's
We're like 4 pages in.
Yeah. She's in this tavern.
Oh, okay, cool.
Right?
Okay.
It's her 21st birthday. So what did she do? She flew until she found a place that had a red sun so she could get drunk.
Wait, how's she going to get home if they have a red sun?
There's transports out there.
Okay.
We'll just get on a ship.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense.
So she
She'll
went
call
out.
an Uber, a space Uber.
Basically, that's exactly what she's going to do. So she's at this tavern getting drunk. Crypto is with her.
Yay!
Is he like? Is he at the drunk level where he's talking to her and being like, I think you should stop?
No, she's like she still has her sense of justice. So instead, she's like, hey, she tries to take the sword back from the guy, right? And the guy's like, don't do that. So even though she is, under a red sun, she still has some level of a bit of strength and
it's residual.
some skill, right?
She's not totally helpless.
No.
But she is wasted.
She is wasted. So like they have a bit of an altercation. She smashes a bottle into his face.
Ooh.
She curses. There's a lot of cursing from her in this book because Tom King's like, this girl curses, and I'm like, yes, I love that about her. Inevitably, she makes a fool of this guy, takes his sword, takes the girl's sword, and gives it back to Ruth. We don't see any of that. Ruthie.
Damn it! I will get it.
And instead, Supergirl wakes up the next day in bed, right? And Ruthie's just sitting on the bed looking at her, and she's in like her Supergirl clothing, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna throw up." And and here is where I need.
Ruthie doesn't even hold her hair back. Jeez.
Right? No, she's like she's doubled over, and like here's where I want to give you a little example. I'll give maybe a few others, but like, this is a little example of the way Ruthie talks. I am Ruthie Marai Knoll, and I am witness to your bravery and skill, and I would like to hire you to kill Krem of the Yellow Hills, the cheating King's agent who slew my father and left him in the dirt. Have you interest in such an arrangement?
Okay, so she's a quest giver.
I freaking love Ruthie. That is her, this entire book, that's her level, right? I also love, Bilquis has this incredible ability to capture these like real humanistic moments. And so like, I love that look, like, and then she just heaves.
For real?
Like she just heaves everywhere.
By the way, Ruthie doesn't hold her hair back because that's something friends do, and this is an acquaintance.
Yeah, she's like, I don't know her.
Yeah, I have a quest for her.
Not only that, but Ruthie is wearing a helmet that holds her hair back. If you need to heave, you put on one of these.
Yeah. This is
should have worn one of my head things.
I've never had to do that. So Supergirl basically was like, I gotta go. I'm not gonna do that. That's not how you solve your problems, okay? Like, you just let it go. I came here to get drunk, but like, you shouldn't go after anybody. You're gonna get
Mission accomplished, apparently.
Yes.
But then why'd she take the sword away from that guy?
Because she's like, you shouldn't
Well,
have
because that
it.
wasn't right.
Yeah, that wasn't right.
But I'm not gonna go on some.
No, I'm not going
damn
to
fool
encourage
adventure.
her. Yeah, I'm gonna tell her to go home.
Right.
So instead, what Ruthie does is, of course, she Samwise Gamgees it up and just dives right into the water after her. And again, here's an opportunity where like King gets to do some world building where he just says things and your mind just takes it, right? Like in her narration, she's like, and as I went, I could feel the jawed ones ripping at my skin, testing and tasting.
What? The jawed ones?
I'm like, what's a jawed one? I assume it's like a piranha, but I don't know that. We never see it. I'm like, cool. Okay. Scary.
It's like a really derpy looking piranha.
Why would you jump into the water if there were jawed ones in there?
She is on a
She's like,
quest.
I need Supergirl. You don't understand, right? She chases after her. She finds Supergirl's rocket, right? And like, Ruthie, like it's literally like, Kara started the sequence for liftoff. It's going to essentially take her back from whence I think either she borrowed this and it's going back, it's like a rental and it's going to go back to where it came from, which I believe is what it does.
Yeah, it's like the Hertz of space vehicles.
Yeah. But it's like it's got like an auto sequence, so she's like power that up and like she's like, go away, Ruthie, like I can't help you.
Is Kara going back to Earth?
Yeah, so she's gonna go. Okay. She's gonna take the transport back, and then she's gonna head back.
She's
to Earth.
based on Earth right
She's like,
now.
I got stuff to do back on Earth, right?
I also gotta walk Crypto.
Yeah.
He's not gonna pee here. He has his spots on Earth.
He can tell it's not his smell. It's like really freaking him out, actually.
You probably don't know the answer to this. Does she have friends?
Ruthie?
No, Supergirl. Kara. Or does she just spend her birthday alone?
She spends her birthday alone.
For no reason. Like,
she has her reasons.
Oh, okay. All right, so we are gonna get.
We'll kind of get into, and you'll start to piece together probably why she was out here.
Ah, okay. All right.
Ruthie pitches her again the exact same thing I read to you before about who she is and what she needs to do.
Right.
Supergirl's like, I have a job, a very important job on Earth, and that job involves not killing people, so I can't help you. Okay? Like, I totally understand it's really hard to lose somebody. And like, Ruthie's like, no, you don't. You have no idea what it's like to lose somebody. And I'm like, huh.
Try your whole planet, Ruthie.
But like, this is fresh. This is raw for this girl. She's a teenager.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's a young girl. She's like that. Her whole world was taken from her. She's like, you couldn't possibly understand that. Supergirl's like,
Okay.
She kind of keeps it to herself.
At the same time, though, I mean, like, it's a different situation.
It is.
I feel like there is no going back for Kara, but Ruthie still has her family.
Yeah, she can
and
go
she
back.
has to live on this planet and this world that she has. Like, how can she deal with the crime that has been committed if she doesn't do something
Well,
about
her brothers had no problem with it.
Her brothers are cowards.
So like,
Her brothers can go back to farming rocks.
What if they call the authorities?
Kara's like really like going back and forth because he was
think-
King's Age when he
yeah.
was one of the
Oh, so
authorities.
That is the authority.
Okay, so they're like the police or
Yeah, they're
the
like
knights or
or
something.
whatever, yeah.
Yeah, it's like if a knight slew a peasant.
Yeah.
Kara's going back and forth, but doesn't have enough time to really think about it when an arrow pierces her chest.
Yikes.
Oh, right, Red Sun.
Red Sun.
Wow.
She's like, I have to get off of this world.
I gotta
that
get
coming.
out of here.
Or I
right?
at least have to get in the shade.
Where we find, remember that guy she was talking to, that like barbarian looking dude, right?
Yeah.
He went and found Krem and
Oh.
warned him that
Of the Yellow Hills?
Of the Yellow Hills.
Oh, no.
And warned him that Ruthie was trying to find someone to help come and get him.
Oh.
So he decides to put a stop to that.
Yikes.
So he like shoots Kara, right? And then naturally that puts Crypto on edge, and so Crypto immediately attacks and is shot.
Oh no. Yeah, because Crypto also doesn't have any powers
crap.
here.
Which of course gets Supergirl right up where she gets shot again. We Boromir her now.
Oh jeez.
But she just keeps coming and she makes it over there. And even though she doesn't have the power of the yellow sun, she has the power of watching her dog be shot.
Yeah.
And so like she kicks
That'll
the
do
crap
it.
out of the barbarian. She like Krem takes a look at that and like just looks at this girl standing there with 3 arrows in her, having just taken down this huge dude, and just goes, nope. And he runs at the ship. He jumps in. The ship completes its takeoff and leaves with Krem.
Oh. Oh no. Yikes. That's not good.
And
Is Crypto gonna die? Does the dog die?
I cannot tell you that.
I really want to say I trust Tom King not to kill Crypto, but Tom King also has a dog, right?
Yes.
So he might do it just to fuck with us.
Kara picked up Krypto and carried him back to the town where they found a doctor who was like, so the issue is that the dog was not only shot, but there was actually a hunting poison on it, and so the dog would not die from the wound, but he's being poisoned, and I don't know what the poison is, so unless you can find out what the poison is, I can't save the dog.
Oh, wow.
So Kara's like, if you saw this man again, could you point him out to me? To Ruth I. And Ruth I was like, yes, I could. So they go together.
Okay.
And where do they go? Basically on an intergalactic bus. And so Ruth I gets to have the opportunity to be on the bus.
It's the worst experience ever.
It literally is, right?
Oh my God.
So like they since they got tickets late, they can't get seats next to each other. Who picks the middle seat, by the way?
An asshole.
That guy. That guy picked the middle seat, right?
Maybe they picked the outer seats, being like, no one's gonna pick the middle seat.
Right.
We'll have all this leg room.
No, she specifically says that like they had no choice, right? But we see that basically the bus is like a cross-country style bus where it makes stops at different rest stops, where it's like you get off and it's like you've got 15. This is a 15 Zermatt stop, and they're like, I don't.
Is that a lot?
Is that a lot? What is that? I don't know.
I also love it looks like a bus.
Right? Yes, it looks like a bus.
An Earth bus.
How come all the other aliens know what unit of time that is, but
Some
they
of them
don't?
do and some of them don't. I don't know,
okay.
right? Like I'm sure like they're like whatever. You just
There'll
kind
be
of
a chime, or they'll flicker the
yeah,
lights.
they just go. I think you can hear like
figure it
random
out.
announcements. But like, point of this is like we're gonna learn a little bit about Ruth I and Supergirl as we go. I'm not gonna tell you everything that happens because what I want you to do is encourage you guys to read this book because I literally cannot put into words how well executed Tom King's words are in this. Because like he's able to capture all these like little moments between the two of them where like they're learning and whatever. We're gonna get into some of them. But trust me, you're gonna like to read the words in this book. I guarantee it.
Does Kara have any powers here, or
No,
she's
we're
still
still too
depowered
close.
because she needs
yes.
to get to
yes.
another
So
sun?
on our journey, we're gonna watch her get closer and closer to a yellow sun system, essentially.
okay.
But we're still in a red sun. But the further we get away from the red sun, the more she gets a little bit of power, a little
Okay.
bit. But it's not enough, right? Okay. So we're in this like rest stop. Immediately, someone's like, "Hey, someone said you're Supergirl. Is that true? Because like your cousin put like my brother, like, you know, in the Phantom Zone, and I swear revenge, right?" So she shows him what for, and Ruth I's like, "Okay, cool. Like this would happen a lot in our journey. So much so that I won't bore you by telling you about it. But trust me, like
it was a lot.
It happened a lot, and that like." Oftentimes, like it was because of like something that her cousin had done, or just because of who she was. So essentially, the next thing you're going to see is this.
Is that
The
a
coolest
dragon?
space dragon
No! No more dragons! God damn it!
Okay, wait, no.
I was warned that you were going to have this reaction to this dragon.
This is like a sea serpent
Tom
dragon.
didn't know what to do here, and so he was like trying to figure out, and her son was like, how about a dragon? He's like, yeah, dragon, space dragon. So he just wrote, and then they run into a space dragon, and Bilkis came up with this, right? To be fair, there's no wings. They're in space, no wings. Okay?
So
Okay.
it's like not a full dragon?
It's not-
Is that what you're saying?
It's like a dragon from
Got a
Japan
dragon head.
mythology.
It's like, listen, like,
it uses the fins on its back to collect
It's a-
solar rays
This
and
was
propel
2001,
itself.
right?
yeah,
like a boat.
2021.
2020. I mean 2021. This
Yeah.
was like the year of the dragon. Like everyone was doing dragon
I
stuff.
guess. But like, I really
that,
like
the
this
2
one.
years before.
Look at how beautiful this is.
At least it's not Scott.
It is pretty.
This is
yeah.
called a carpine dragon. Essentially, it usually patrols the western galaxies, eating anything that's metal.
Okay.
But this one's on
It's
the
a
wrong.
dragon that eats metal.
Yeah.
It's a
Well, how about
metal
this?
dragon.
Don't forget, like in theory, there is some sort of universal translation going on here. So it could just be dragon is the closest word they have to what it really is.
Right. It's a dragon. I don't care what they call it.
It's a
That's a
dragon.
dragon.
It's a dragon.
It's a frickin' dragon.
It's a beautiful dragon though. So anyway, the point of this is that like we see this dragon because they're on the way back because it's been the
15 Quarsex.
Zermets. that too. Well, you know what a corset is? No, Zermets.
Zermits.
We've got, and like, so they're headed back,
look
and like
that
the
up.
bus driver basically pages Supergirl to come up to the front. And he's like, hey, so this is a problem because this thing's not supposed to be in this area, and we are nothing but metal.
So
it's gonna eat
So
us.
it's going to eat the bus. unless we can stop it. And that's where like one of my absolute favorite panels I've ever seen comes into play, because it reminds me so much of pop art. It's just her looking at it going, bummer. I freaking love that. And I said it on Twitter, I would love for them to make a actual like panel print of that. I'd put that up in a heartbeat. They're like, is there anything you can do about this? She's like, yeah, no, we're still like...
You seem pretty strong.
Yeah, Dave, but like we're not near any of the good sons that I can do anything with.
How fast can you drive this bus?
So basically she goes to the back of the bus where she looks and like at everyone and she goes, okay, who's got reds? Because reds are a like red kryptonite pill. It's a drug. And like if you're not Kryptonian, it basically just gives you crazy hallucinations. And so like people use it a lot of times when they're traveling for long times in space because it kind of, it
zones you out.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you're there, right?
Like, look, I'm gonna be high for a long time and then I'll be at my destination.
But it's illegal, right? If a Kryptonian takes it, those hallucinations can come to be. And so she's hoping that like she gets something good out of this, right?
Oh my God.
She finds someone who's holding, she takes it, and like she's like, okay, she's telling Ruth I about it. She's like, listen, here's the thing. Like, sometimes you turn into a horrible monster. Sometimes your hair just grows too long. But like, listen, whatever it is, it's gonna be better than getting eaten by a dragon, so here we go.
Right.
So she takes it, and here's where we get the homage to Matrix Supergirl.
Oh.
Because Matrix Supergirl merges at one point with like an Earth Angel and gets like fire wings, and we get this.
Right. Okay.
And in fact, we actually get like, there's a very similar panel to one of the John Byrnean panels of her flying towards it.
This art is crazy.
This art is, it's incredible. You've never seen anything like this in your life. And it is beautiful, and it is like visceral, even though it is so high concept and out there. And Lopez's colors are just like on another level. And thank God she brought him in. Because if they got another colorist, it would be good art.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be where it is, right?
This is substantial.
Yes. Yes, it's
Yeah.
It's worth it seeing a dragon.
I can't believe they're not doing a fucking hardcover.
Ruth marvels at all of this, and like, because like they're looking upon this as she basically like a phoenix like slices through this dragon and saves everyone.
What? She kills it?
She kills it.
That's just an animal.
She kills it.
It doesn't know any better.
What's she gonna do? Ask it to leave?
Yeah, she's got a universal translator, right?
It has as much right to be there as that bus does.
Actually, it doesn't. It's in the wrong place.
Well, what does that mean?
Oh, it's out of its sector.
Yeah, wandered out of its established
an environment.
habitat.
Yeah, what do they do to bears?
Well, they trank them, usually.
Well, you can't
Unless they become problem bears.
Well,
Maybe
this
it's
is clearly a
dragon.
problem dragon, okay? It's going to eat the bus.
This is like the 4th time this dragon's been here.
Yeah, like, enough is enough.
It's not
It's gotten a taste for passengers.
Now, here... Oh, no. Here's where I,
People were throwing away too many buses in that area, and it got habituated to there being
it got too
food
into
there.
it. Here's where I love like King's style of writing, because we go from this incredible moment where Ruth is looking upon this and like thinking about all the like far-flung adventuring stories she heard, and she's seeing this, and how like she's just like, yeah, like she always expected that the world beyond her farm was not that great, but like what a fool she was. To then cut to the bathroom of the rest stop. And like, it's like sometime later, presumably, right? And that like, you know.
It's after you get the reds out of your system.
Yeah, they would, well this is some, again, I'm pretty sure based on our narration, some time has passed and that like.
Yeah, that was a 12-hour shit.
Wow, they waited that long? How many Zermits is that? Along their quest, there'd be other things like dragons that they would run into. And again, Ruth is not going to trouble us with that.
Just give you the highlights.
But instead what we're going to do is have this really beautiful moment here where like Ruth comes out of the bathroom, and we kind of get a Demolition Man reference here, sort of, because
the 3 seashells?
Ruth comes out and she's like, I hope I did this correctly, because when I went in there were 4 holes, so I wasn't sure what to do in there, and I'm like, that has to be a 3 seashells.
It needs to be.
Right? And like,
or it's just for an animal that has 4 butts.
Right? It's just like, you gotta figure out what to do with those 4 holes, okay? Kara's like, I'm sure you did fine. And then like, Ruth watching her wash her hands, and she's like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm washing my, wait a minute. We've been traveling for like a month. Have you not been washing your hands?
We shared food off the same plate. Oh my God.
And Ruth like, is that necessary? Is that like a thing we need to do? And I love this sequence because basically Kara just takes her hands and like leads her through the process gently. So we just watched her punch through a space dragon, and now you get to see the gentleness of Supergirl taking this girl's hands and gently showing her how to wash them and how to clean herself.
And they become cleaner. Like, you see the filth on them at first.
Yep. And it's just such a beautiful moment. She's like, listen, go there, test the soap first, because typically whatever they've got there is be a cleaning agent, but occasionally I've been a couple of places where their skin's been tougher and it's an acid, so just test it first. But otherwise, you should be good.
It's a little more complicated washing your hands in
it's just
space.
so sweet. Like,
yeah.
So
the front page.
It's just such a gorgeous, like, the pressure, like, it's so precious and perfect. And it leads to, since they're having this like connected moment, Ruth asks her about, like, obviously Kara has mentioned to her in their travels the destruction of her own planet, and so Ruth is like, did you seek vengeance? And like she gets really serious and sad in a way, and she's like, no, I didn't. And like Ruth mentions in her narration that she's like, in her response, I heard a whole life of regret. And I'm like, okay, cool.
But also, who would she go after?
Well, because like Ruth doesn't quite 100% like maybe doesn't understand everything that happened. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so she's like, you should have done something, right? Didn't you do something?
Yeah. Who did you punch afterwards?
Yeah.
Right. Is this what is the canonical reason for the destruction of Krypton at this point?
It's just the canonical reason. Like Krypton just, you know.
Okay. It's not like freaking like Rogelzar or some shit was responsible.
But that isn't brought up in this at all. But like this is technically in continuity, so I guess it is. So I guess she should go punch him. Yeah. But we're gonna just basically ignore that.
Yeah, I'm trying to interpret her statement
we're just gonna put him
of I didn't
over there.
Ignore it.
Because trust me, the I didn't will make sense as we go through, right? But like, we'll just put him.
Yeah.
Shelf
there.
that.
Just shh. Sorry.
Okay.
They end up getting to beyond the red sun and get to a yellow sun system where her powers start coming back, and she asks like if she could see the ship because they've gone back to where the ship would have come, because that's how they know, because they're supposed to go back to the specific place.
Okay.
And she's like, do you see the ship? And like Supergirl's answer is like, I see everything, and that's how we know, okay, she's back. You know, like we're back to the Supergirl who is powered and won't possibly be killed or stabbed by like any normal weaponry. This is a real issue 3. Issue 3 is a very important issue, and we're really not going to delve into it because it honestly doesn't hold that much in terms of the overall story.
Okay.
It does play a big role in Ruth Eye's understanding of evil in the galaxy. Like, she knows evil, the cut and dry. Her father was killed. That was an injustice. This is something else. And again, when you pick this up, pay close attention to this issue. This is a beautiful issue because of how horrific it is.
Oh.
I'm going to give you the long and the short of it here.
I love how you phrased that.
Trust me. So they end up in a place called Maypole, and like Ruth Eye's narration for it is like Maypole was like, this little small town, which is like funny to say that now when everyone knows what happened there, right? Okay, cool. And the idea is that they got a hot tip that Krem came through this town. He may have been arrested here, so they're trying to find if he's there, right? So she goes talk to the constable there, and he's like, no one like that came through here. We don't have anybody like that, right? And gives Kara a really hard time about it, and then essentially like kicks them out. She knocks over, he's building a house of cards, she knocks it over.
He's building a house of cards.
Building a house of cards, and she knocks it over.
Is that symbolic for something that's going to happen?
It also gives Ruth an opportunity. This entire chapter gives Ruth another opportunity to really get to know Supergirl and who she is as a person as well, because it's like people all over the place assert that like Supergirl is a woman of infinite patience, and she's like, and trust me, as a person who spent a lot of time with her, I can tell you right now that was not my experience. I was like, okay. So we are getting the Kara who is for truth, justice, and the human way.
But someone shot her dog.
Right, but then we also have the Kara who's like, has a very different experience than Cal had, right? So she doesn't maybe have that level that he has. She's in a very different headspace, and we'll get into that, right? They're walking around this town. They're like, what are we gonna do next? So we'll walk around the town. We'll talk to the people here. Someone has to have seen something. They basically get the brush off from everybody. Kara's like noticing little things like in town. They go to the hotel to check in, and she sees like there's like a book, right, where you sign your name, right? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm confused. There's 2 columns here. Do I sign in under? Am I purple or am I blue? And she's like, oh, no, all folders are all blue. Just sign under blue. It's fine. She's like, cool. And then Kara's looking through, and she's like, I see that no one purple has signed in like in that column in a long time. What's up with that? She gets more than the brush off. She gets like a,
Yeah, a very dismissive, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, exactly. So Kara signs in. They go up to the roof for her to take a look at the town, and that's when like Ruth is like, "Oh, do you see Krem of the Yellow Hills?" Which she literally says, and she's like, "No, but they're all blue." And you're like, "Oh no, okay." Further things, they go to a diner to eat. There's a sign that was recently repainted. Now, of course, she can use her X-ray vision. She can see what was there. And, like, it said something about, like, no purples. Okay, so I think you figured out what's going on in this town, right? Like, we're dealing with racism and diversity. But where are all the purple people, right?
Being eaten by the blues.
You'd think that.
Yeah.
No.
Eaten?
No.
I wouldn't have thought that.
I would
have thought murder.
No. Well, because like they go to the diner, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like I get it.
There is a diner. That's true.
And like if you
that doesn't
listen,
mean
if
that
you
they ate the.
Did you see the cover of this book? Because I saw the cover of this book.
I'll go back to the cover.
Lots of teeth. Okay, lots of teeth.
I totally trust me. When Ben said that, I was like, "That's not a leap for Ben." That is, I gotta give him that. Sorry,
they do
Ethan.
have a lot of teeth.
That is
That's
not a
true.
leap.
I think that's just to make them look sinister. But maybe it's to imply they ate them.
Here is what ends up happening, and here's what Kara ends up figuring out. Is that there's an attack on them in the night. Kara saves Ruthai, finds the people who did this, goes back to the mayor. The mayor is like, no, like, I mean, like, you brought us these people, but do we really know that they did that? I don't know. Like, he's truly trying to, he's like, just let it go and leave, right? This is also a really great sequence. This is the first time Kara flies with Ruthai. And it's so sweet because she's like, okay, she's trying to explain it to her, and like, Ruthai doesn't quite understand.
Like, no, but like, how do you move through the air?
Like, no, but how scary it will be.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, because like if you think about it, what has Ruthai done? Like, she's maybe ridden a horse. Like, she's never flown. She was in the space, right?
Yeah, but like, that's like being in a vehicle.
Yeah. So like, she's like, okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna like ride piggyback, and she's like, I don't know what that means. So she's like, okay, put your arms around my neck, put your legs around my hips. And then I love this moment because she's like,
oh, pebbleback.
Yeah.
Because I'm a rock farmer. I get that.
Everything has to be in terms of rocks.
Right. So she's like, I love this because Supergirl like grabs her two hands that are around her neck, and she's like, I'm gonna hold you with my hand here. Now don't forget, these hands can turn coal into diamonds. I'm not going to let go. Like, so you're not gonna fall. You'll be fine. And so they fly because like Kara's always worried about her in this entire thing. So they fly out to this like the perimeter of Maypole, and she starts digging. And I love this like example of her digging because it like just goes to show you the strength of the Kryptonians,
She's
right?
flinging stuff.
Just flinging it. Yeah. And like she stops when she finds the sign that says Purple Town, and then she stops again when she finds the bodies. And you're like, okay, so what happened? Well, shortly before Kara had gotten there, the brigands had arrived. And the brigands are these like Barbon's brigands who go from place to place, and they take what they will, and they destroy worlds, basically. They destroy towns and they destroy people to get what they want. And like, if you have the money to pay them, then they'll go away. But if you don't, then you give up your life, essentially, right? Which part of it is like, who is the Green Lantern of this sector?
Yeah.
And why have you not done anything?
Yeah.
Unless they're so far out, there is no Green Lantern. I don't know.
Maybe.
Oh no, we don't patrol that sector.
Oh, yeah,
Maybe
no.
this is one of the times when the Green Lantern Corps was destroyed or
Right.
something.
But
It happens a lot.
Oh
like,
no,
you'd think the brigands would be enough to get someone out there.
Yeah.
no,
right.
the Owens are like, the blues are fine.
No, these guys are all over the place. The brigands also, while they were there, they had in fact arrested Krem in Maypole, and they heard of Krem heard them complaining about like what were they going to do, because the mayor tried to find like, we have money but we don't have that kind of money, like what are we going to do? They're going to kill us all. Like Krem hears all this and he comes up with a plan. He's like, give them the purples.
Oh, it's Clem's idea?
Yeah, Krem's like, give them the purples. That gets rid of the people you don't like, and it gets them off of your back. And so then hearing this, this is the plot put forth by Krem, the brigands take Krem with them and make him one of their own because he must...
they like the cut of his
I like
jib.
the way you think.
And so that's exactly what happened.
Oh.
And like, this is the point in which like Ruthai realizes what evil is. And like, she has this moment where she's like, it's too big and we're too small.
Aww.
And I'm like, oh.
That hits.
Yeah, right?
That hits hard.
And like that's it. Like Supergirl doesn't punch anyone. There's no one to be punched here. Like what can you do?
Yeah. Yeah, how do you hold the whole planet to account?
Exactly.
Like, what are you supposed to do?
So now they know that Krem is with the Brigands. So we follow Krem and the Brigands, and basically everywhere they go, it's a horror show.
Okay. I'm not going to cry, but I'm tearing up a little bit.
Well,
this is some serious shit.
In particular, it's like, you know, like Ruth Eye is like, I grew up with I was the youngest of my siblings, so I didn't have to fill in as a mom to my siblings like others in my family did. So occasionally I'd have to. I'm sorry.
Why do you do this to me?
I don't know. Occasionally I'd have to go to my cousins where there would be other young children, but I didn't have to do too much and I'd leave. And so she's like, I'm so thankful that Supergirl is here because when we come to this other planet and there is a baby crying alone with no family, she knew what to do. And so Supergirl takes it, and again you see that gentleness and that strength that Supergirl has, right? And you see the destruction that Krem and the Brigands leave behind, right? We meet another individual who will give us a horrific account of Krem, brutalism, and the fact that he and his friend are the Brigands arrive. He and his friend try to make a run for it. Krem finds them, of course. He immediately stabs his friend in the chest. And the guy who has remained, he's and then he took his sword to me, and the guy lives through it, but there's not much of him left. And it's that's who Krem is, right? Okay. Then we come to Tilius, in which it's already over. They've come and gone, and the whole planet isn't destroyed, just this one area is, right? And we see a man and he's digging graves, right? And Supergirl and Ruth Eye come down, and Supergirl's how many have you done today? And he's oh, just a few dozen. The Earth is good for digging, so that makes the process easier. I'm a little further ahead than I thought it was going to be. But the fact is, I only have until I think it's essentially sunup, and there's hundreds to thousands of bodies. And if I can't bury them all, then the mayor basically has to put them in a mass grave, and my daughter's among them, and I want to bury her. And so Supergirl's can I help? And he's no, this is my job. This is the job I meant. And she's yes, but I'm a neighbor, and my job as a neighbor is to help you with your job. And he's okay, well, I could use a hand, if you could maybe do one or two. And of course, because she's Supergirl, in a flash, she does all of them. And she's and I scanned your DNA and I know which one is your daughter's. Would you like to go to her grave now, or should we check to make sure I did everything correctly, because I want to make sure they're all right? And he's we can do that first and then we'll go to my daughter. And again, this is an example for Ruth Eye to see Supergirl's compassion, but it's also Supergirl seeing the horror of Krem.
Yeah.
So we got a little twofold here going on, right?
Yeah.
We meet a giantess in a sense, who her family was taken from her, and she is so afraid that she can't bear the pain that she has in her heart, that it won't come out, and that she'll never be able to get over it. She just has this pain in her chest because she can't get over the emotion of losing everything. And so Supergirl baits her into punching her a whole bunch until she cries, and Supergirl embraces her. Then we go to a place which is beautifully drawn, because it's gothic looking. It's gorgeous. I love this. It's so different than everything you've seen so far, where they have recordings of all of the horrors that Krem has wrought. And so Supergirl has to go in and watch them, and Ruth Eye's I can go in too. Anything that you can handle, I can handle. I've seen all he's done too. And she's if you don't have to see what he has actually done, you've only seen the results, the better you'll be for it. And it's she comes out and she's Supergirl's not okay with what she saw. She saw it all essentially. And then we see one of the Brigands who has been captured, who's not Krem. He was left behind by the other Brigands. This one town fought back, this poet town, or this poet place that's filled with artists and poets, took this man and they stoned him to death. And Supergirl and Ruth Eye are in the crowd, and Ruth Eye's I kind of thought you actually would save him. She's did you?
Yeah.
Because she's seen what they've done. I'm okay, we're going someplace. They go to this beautiful place where it's they're monks and they're peace loving, and when the Brigands came, they didn't do anything. They sat and they allowed it to happen to them, because that's who they were, and that was their belief, and that was their religion. And Supergirl wants to scream, but she can't because she'll topple the place, and nothing else can happen here. She can't take it anymore, and so essentially she like flies out into the yellow sun where she's able to scream and live the pain. And Ruth-Eye doesn't quite understand like where all of this is coming from, but she will inevitably begin to get it. Again, we see Bilquis's beautiful art, right? Supergirl, at this point, we've gone, how long have we been going? Questionably, who knows? But it's been quite a while, and like, Supergirl's like, we're getting close, and I'm sending you home, Ruth-Eye. Because like, you can't be here for what comes next. Ruth-Eye's like, I'm not having that. You're just like that guy. Like, you're gonna do the deed for me. I have to do this. It was my father who died. Like, it's not just about saving your dog, it's about my justice.
Yeah, why do you think I came all of this way?
Yeah, like, it's not just, you know, like, she's like, I'm not some teething toddler, you know? And like, she's like, what was the like, first ages you saw, like, terror and horror? And Supergirl's like, I was a girl. And she's like, what do you think I am? And so like, Supergirl doesn't say anything. She just bends down and lets Ruth-Eye get on top of her. And I love this moment because for me, like, it really symbolizes this book as a whole, because it's just that she bends down, Ruth-Eye gets on her, and then Ruth-Eye in her narration says, and I put my weight on her. And I'm like, and that's what Ruth-Eye has done this entire time, is like she doesn't even realize it, how much she's putting her weight on Supergirl, right? Yeah. In a good way.
And she doesn't say, hop on my back.
No, hop on my back.
On my back.
They catch up with Krem and the Brigands, and they're right there. It's time, right? Like, this is it. When Krem produces a Mordru globe, which is a magical item. Now, if you know anything about the Super family, that's not going well for them, right? And so it engulfs Ruth-Eye and Supergirl. She knows what it is. She knows it's magic, and I think she understands what's going to happen. And they basically transport away like a ridiculous amount of like miles, right? Like they're just gone, and they end up on a planet that Kara says was designed as a trap for her cousin. And the planet has all these like crazy monsters.
So Krem knows about the Kryptonians.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Most space people know about
Krypton and Kryptonians and such, right? And it's like they once they identified that she was Supergirl, you know, kind of put two and two together, and you know. But this planet has a green sun.
What's a green sun do?
A green sun is basically acts like kryptonite. And like, she does mention kryptonite, but it's like, how could the sun be made out of kryptonite? But it was created, so I don't know. There is an old Golden Age story with Superman in which Superman goes to a planet where there's a blue sun, and they use like a satellite. Someone used a satellite to turn it green, and that depowers. This is not that place.
Okay.
I mean, you could literally just have like a kryptonite shield around it, where it just like reflects light through,
but like,
I guess.
Essentially, the sun is producing this green radiation towards her, and it's like just needles plunging into her every second that she's there, right? So she has like no powers. And in the center of the world is like an oasis, and there's water there, and Ruth-Eye wants to go to get the water for her to help her to get there, and she's like, no, that's a trap. That's where all the monsters will be. It's better that we stay here. I can't defend you down there. Ruth-Eye also asks, she's like, so your cousin, like, how long did he last on the planet? And she's like, 45 minutes before the Justice League came and saved him. And like, she makes it seem like Cal was almost gonna off himself maybe, because like he was in so much pain. And she says that like, he says it's the closest he's ever come to death. And that's saying a lot because of Doomsday. Like, she puts that, like, that's what she says in this. And I'm like, that's awesome, right? So like, they're trying to track the sun a little bit, and Ruth-Eye estimates that they've got 10 hours before sunset.
Yikes.
So this is Ruth-Eye's chance to defend Supergirl. She takes up the sword, and inevitably a beast does come, right? And so Ruth-Eye, like, she's like, I've killed things in my past, like, you know, like, what does she say? I can't remember. There's some kind of pigs.
Oh. Rock pigs?
Maybe there's some sort of wild whatever. I don't know.
Wild rock pigs.
But that, like, she has, like, you know, she's like, I've done that before, but like, you know, I can do this. And then this thing's like big.
Dinosaur.
It's a dinosaur. It's a freaking dinosaur, right? And so like, she does end up surviving, right? Because of like, she does pick up some stuff in terms of like watching Supergirl fight as often as they have on their adventure together, right?
Yeah.
Ornery pigs, that's what they call them. PYGS. So maybe they're
Right.
rocks, actually. So she kills it, but like it exhausts her, and so she falls asleep. And when she awakens, other dinosaur monsters have come to feast on the other thing. And the mistake she makes is for calling out for Supergirl because it alerts them. They didn't know they were there, right? And so like they come after Ruthai. She tries to grab for the blade, but her hands are still covered in blood, and so is the blade. And the blade has like a soft like sheepskin-esque wrapping around it, so her hand slips off of it. And she's like, so I learned by mistake to like care for your blade, basically. So she learns from this, but almost dies in doing so. Supergirl wakes up long enough to like zap the bird. It's amazing because she's like, she curses at it. She's like, hey, it's a fucking bird. That's a plane. It's Supergirl. And she passes back out, right?
I love how sick she looks.
She looks like destroyed. The sun just can't go down fast enough. At one point, she wakes up. She's like, I have to go. I have to go for water. I'm dying, Ruthai. I have to go for the water. Ruthai won't let her go. She like holds her sword to her. And like, you know, Supergirl's like, I've moved mountains. I'll move you. You know, Ruth's like, no, I can't, because like doing this will cost your life. And like, you know, it should also not cost me mine. And so like by saying that it would like kill her, Supergirl lets it go and settles back in. And sun is finally setting, but it's not all the way down, and that's when the biggest dinosaur shows up. The biggest, scariest Jurassic World dinosaur shows up.
With a mouth
Indominus
3
Rex
times
shows
the
up.
size
And
spikes.
It's huge, and like Ruthai looks at it and she's like, there's nothing I can do about this. I know I can't stop this thing. So all she does...
Dinosaur like that, swallow your whole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you know, he could, but he'll chew you just because.
Because it enjoys
Just
it.
to be a dick. So she just pleads with the sun, please set, please set. And the sun eventually does set. Kara regains enough of her abilities to fend it off. And once nightfall comes, she recharges and they leave. And it's so funny because when she wakes up, she basically goes like 45 minutes. Like, what a little, and like, it's clearly like, it's bitch. Like she gives her cousin a hard time. I'm like, that's awesome. I love that about her. She's just like, yeah, 45 minutes? Yeah, try this on for size. Issue 6 is where we get the retelling of her origins.
Okay.
And it's beautiful, and it is set against them rerunning into Krem, essentially. Like, they arrive back, and...
I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, he's like, that's fine. Something you should know about the Mordru Globe, which Ruthai says that she did a lot of research after, because obviously it interested her great, post her adventures with Supergirl. And so what she found out was that like the incantation to make it happen was pretty easy. Pretty much any fool could do it. But like what you had to have done first was killed like 1,000 people. So Krem has 2.
So he's killed at least 2,000
because
people.
Krem is a monster, right? So like when they show back up, Krem has another one, but that's okay. Kara's ready for him because he's like, she basically is like, you shot my dog, Krem of the Yellow Hills. Like now it's time. So he throws another one at her. And he's like, doesn't matter, you're Superman or woman, this thing will catch you. And she's like, that's right, Superman or woman, but what about Comet?
What?
Okay, you guys, you do know Comet though, right?
No.
You don't know
No.
Comet?
No comment.
Okay. Comet is one of the super pets.
Ah.
Comet is the super horse.
There's a super horse?
Yeah, there's Comet. So there's Crypto the super dog, Beppo the super monkey, Streaky the super cat, and Comet the super horse.
Okay.
And Comet is intrinsically attached to Supergirl, and we're going to talk more about Comet a little later on, but I just want you to know
Really? Okay.
she clearly called out to Comet, and Comet showed up. And like, so Comet...
Yeah, she whistled. Lord of horses.
Right? He might as well be. Now, I will give you a heads up. Those who know Comet, this is the pre-crisis Comet.
Ah.
There
So
is
it's not a goop.
There is
horse.
a post-crisis Comet.
What?
That's a whole nother bag of things.
Okay.
Whole nother bag of things we're not even going to touch. Just know it's over there.
So there's 2 comments now?
Well, no, it's really just, I think...
It's just the one, really.
I think Tom's just going, just ignore that one. Let's just go back to pre-crisis Comet,
Everything's
okay?
pre-crisis. We got pre-crisis Supergirl. 'cause
Pre-crisis
she
Comet.
exists, and we got pre-crisis
Post-crisis Supergirl did eventually exist.
Comet.
And essentially, I'm going to tell you her origin story, but I want to tell you that what Comet does is they race the Mordru thing to basically the end of the universe and beyond, and they go to a place that is really dope looking because it ends up being like black and white. And when they arrive there, essentially she's like, magic doesn't really work here, and she destroys it.
Ah, nice.
You've outflown color.
Yes, exactly. It's dope, and it's also a testament to Bilquis's art because it looks just as good in black and white. I do like the color better.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Kara's origins, right? Because like here's what Tom King loved about her was that like, and when you think about it, Kara was 14. So she actually experienced the death of her world. Clark's all like, boo-hoo, my world, I didn't get to know my parents, but you basically were a baby, got sent to a different world and had a loving family there.
Yeah.
Kara was 14 and watched her world die. Now, Tom King, when going back, really loved it in the Golden Age. Kara not only watched her world die once, she watched it die 3 times, in a way. And so that's what we're going to see, is that telling of her origin.
Okay.
In which it's like, you know, Kara's in school, and then the quakes start happening, and there's a big one, essentially, and like when she wakes up, all of her classmates are dead, and she just walks home.
That is such a
Yeah.
like a
Trust
crazy
me.
thing, but at the same time, it's so relatable. Being like, there was this tragedy,
Yeah.
and then I went home.
Right. Well,
Like,
she just
most people died,
she
but some people
stumbles
didn't.
home, and like honestly, like this is yet another chapter where it's like I can't do this thing justice. You have to just read the account of this. But like she stumbles home, and like, you know, along the way, like she runs into a guy who she knew, like a local merchant of some sort, and like a rock cleaved him in 2, and like he's trying to hold his innards in because there's like starting to slip, and he asks her to help him, and she just keeps walking home, and she sees a baby carriage and it's silent, and so she hopes that maybe the mom was able to save the baby and leave, but more than likely it's gone. Like it's dead. Like it's just a horror show. And so she gets home, and Krypton doesn't die in a day, right? That's what we're saying here. It doesn't quite die in a day. It explodes. The rocket leaves and then it explodes, right? But like there are quakes and like things go to shit over time.
Precursors, yeah.
And Kara often thinks back of when she was a young girl looking out her window where there was like a tree with red and blue leaves. And like that's what she thinks of often when she thinks back because she has those memories, Clark. But like in this, her city of Argo, and in the Golden Age story, and for I think a lot of people, that was kind of blown away. And so it exists, and it's floating in space. And her dad, who is also a scientist, is able to basically create a force field around it real quick that traps some atmosphere in it for them, right? And so they're just floating through space.
The Argonauts.
The Argos. We're not calling them that. Just because they're space, they're astronauts, and they're from Argo. So the problem is, though, as they floated, right? I think in the original one, like he created a propulsion system that kind of drove them, but like in this, they're just kind of floating, and so like
Every once in a while, they have to throw something off of it to change direction.
what? No. First of all, her mother dies as well. It's super sad, but her dad, like just eventually, like I think she slips into a coma, and then her dad pulls the plug on her.
So
But
not a
anyway,
healing coma.
not a healing coma. Not a healing coma. Or maybe it was. I don't know. But anyway, as they're
have enough
floating,
juice.
they're on Krypton. The earth underneath them begins to turn into kryptonite and is poisoning them.
Oh my gosh.
What?
So like the ground underneath them is becoming kryptonite and poisoning them. So everyone's getting radiation poisoning. And so her dad figures, we have all this lead from another project left over. So what we have to do is like drive these spikes into the earth, which will help to dissipate that, right? And so they get, it's an all hands on deck kind of thing, right? And so everyone's out there, and so Kara's out there too, and she's hammering away. However many, the first hour or so, she's got blisters and it's horrible, so she switches hands, right? And after like 45 hours of uninterrupted work, she gets tired and she wants to sleep. So what she does instead is she slams the hammer into her leg to like cut herself, so she wakes back up and she continues to work. And by the end of the first 48 hours, everyone basically has left, and so she works alone. And Kara single-handedly takes 3 weeks and hammers every one of those things in.
And saves Argo.
For now, but like like originally, I think there was like 13,000 people, and like I not as many survived it post that because so many of them had.
Poisoning.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. About 13,000 Kryptonians eventually died from that poisoning. So that's twice now. So she watched her world die, like, when it exploded, and now she's watching her world die from people dying of radiation poisoning. And so at that point, she kind of just stops making friends and turns her attention instead to building crypts for the people who died. Which I love that, because we see that echoed when she goes to help build or help to dig those graves, right? She's like, no, you have to be buried. Inevitably, they continue going and they end up hitting this meteor shower, which ends up just puncturing the dome. And so everyone's going to die again. And there's nothing that can be done. But in that time, her dad had basically copied his brother's work and built a single rocket and put her in there. And she left. So
I apologize. The schematics are kind of small. It's baby size. You're going to have to squeeze.
Just crunch up a little bit.
Practice your yoga.
I could scale it up. There was no time to test a larger model.
Exactly,
so,
exactly. And so she leaves her broken city behind and is off. So for me, I kind of get why Tom's writing Kara like this. Because Clark didn't do any of this.
Yeah.
He's just sad and has crystals. And I'm not trying to take away from him.
He just woke up and found out that...
Yeah, and he has a loving family there who raises him as their own.
Hey, guess what? You're not really our son. You came from a distant planet.
Yeah.
But we're still here for you and we care for you.
Yeah, and Kara's like, I watched people's innards fall out of their bodies. And I watched people die of radiation, and I watched my mother slowly die, and I watched my world crumble, and then I left. So, so like in a way, even though he's older than she is, because of reasons.
Because of Earth years.
Yeah, she's got like her
they
own.
age differently?
I think I think it's like a space thing. Like she got stuck in a thing and then came back around.
she was like in stasis or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that like she's more mentally, like, you know what I mean? She's in a very different place than he is, because she's experienced quite a bit of different. Now, again, Superman has gone through his shit, let's be honest. But when it comes to Krypton, I gotta side with her on this one, right?
Yeah. Well, she endured more trauma
at a
more
at a very
impressionable
yes,
age.
exactly. And it's stuff that she hasn't dealt with, right? So you can kind of understand why when she turns 21, that she was like, I'm just gonna go.
I'm gonna get fucked up.
I'm just gonna go do that. These two last issues are going to deal with Krem of the Yellow Hills. Like, let's actually deal with Krem, and it's the creme de la creme.
They got to the end of the universe.
And that's where it ends.
Color.
And that's where it ends there. And you're like, what happened with Krem? They took him. Because Supergirl had run, like, Kemp comes back, and she just takes Krem. She's like, I've got him. And so they have to outrun the Brigands, because the Brigands have this thing where it's like, if you capture one of us, then we'll come and get you. We're monsters and assholes.
What about that one?
But we have a high morality when it's our own people.
What about the one that got stoned? They didn't come back for him.
Well, he
Or
looked
did
like
they?
he was pretty messed up to begin with, and presumably if they don't know what happened to you, then they'll just let it go.
Oh.
Like, it's like, oh, he died, it's fine.
Right, he just died in battle
whatever.
or whatever.
No, I'm awake now. Too late.
It's
Too
not
late,
the
we
same
left.
as snatching one of us.
Yeah.
We also
You
took
can't
a
just-
vote ahead of time, and you looked creepy, man. We didn't want you on the ship anymore.
Yeah, it was not a good scene.
It was bad for morale.
Exactly that. So basically, Kara parks Ruthai and Krem on this like beautiful beachy looking planet with like fun floating flying fish things and jellyfish. And Comet remains behind.
Wait, you never explained to us where Comet came from.
Wait, he just showed up.
No, I just meant like in the history. Like, how did she find Comet? Oh, is that coming?
We'll get that. Well, no, Comet and she like have had a long history together. Like she was her super pet.
How
Because it
did
was,
Comet
like,
survive the destruction of Krypton?
all the super pets have different ways that they got here, and we will get into all of them. Trust me. There's gonna be a moment where you're gonna go, what?
Wait.
Okay. So Comet remains behind to basically guard Ruth and to keep her safe. Ruthai. And we have this cute moment where like they're working together in tandem to get like a big apple-looking thing that they're going to share. And Ruthai gives a little backstory about her experiences with animals and what have you, and like whatever. What you really care about is the fact that like while this is going on above planet is the Brigand ship, which is just a big pirate ship
With spikes.
with spikes. And that like this is the type of armament that could like take down cities and planets and such. And there you're gonna aim it at her. And they have a big dope fight, right? And like they fire everything. And the idea here is that like Kara is theoretically, potentially stronger than Superman. Stronger
Say it ain't so.
Yeah, no, she's potentially more resilient than he is. And like Sal and I were talking about that and like why that would be. And I was like, well, I wonder if it has to do with the fact that she spent more time at like growing to the age of 14 under a red sun and then came. Like if that has changed her physiology. And I'm like, you know, should Zod then be super powerful? I don't know, but she has the potential, right?
Right.
But the fact is that, like, you know, you might be faster than a speeding bullet or stronger than a locomotive or able to leap tall buildings, but like inevitably there'll be a faster bullet. And, you know, there'll be a stronger locomotive and there'll be a taller building, right? And so, like, we do see her get taken down. Down below, Krem is lashed to a tree, like, fully. Kara was not going to risk anything here, and he can't say anything and he can't see anything. And, like, Ruth is like, we should at least, like, ask him if he happens to know, like, you know, how to save Crypto. Comet doesn't necessarily want to do that, and she realizes that Supergirl doesn't trust her down there as well because she's afraid that, like, Ruthai will just kill him because that's what she's wanted to do.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why Comet's there. It's not to protect Ruthai, it's to protect Ruthai from herself.
Right.
So notably, like, you know, she convinces...
Does Comet... Okay, he's not talking. He's just neighing.
Yeah, he just neighs at her. He...
Do you think we should kill him? Nay. Can I take his bondage off? Nay.
See, it all
Would
works.
you like an apple?
So she convinces Comet that they should hear him out and see if maybe he tells them something about Crypto, but instead, of course, he prattles on about how, like, it doesn't matter, like, what happens here, because, like, the brigands will never stop coming for them, and they're going to die, and, like, doesn't matter if you've got Supergirl, because they can take her down, and who cares?
Dude, you're one of the newest recruits. You're a greenhorn.
They're like, they love me. They do love him.
Right.
They
For some
do,
reason.
They
he's
do
just
absolutely
the
love him.
Well, yeah, he's scum.
He is scum. And then he recounts what happened to her dad.
Oh, we get the backstory.
We get the
of
backstory
why.
of what happened. And essentially he's like, well, you know what my job was to go around and try to trick people into revealing that they didn't like the king. So I would go and tell, like, a dirty joke about the king, that, like, maybe the prince wasn't his or whatever, right? And if
They laughed...
yeah, you're dead.
Yeah.
And so what happened was your dad actually objected. He didn't laugh at all. He like told me to, like, get off of his lands, and that, like, he was rude, and that, like, he, like, you know, destroyed the pride of his people and all that. Like, and Krem couldn't handle the idea of this man going on in his future thinking he was better than Krem. And when he came out of his own thoughts, he had found that he had stabbed him.
Oh. So he's a psycho.
Yeah.
And he didn't even realize he killed him until after he killed him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so he's like,
Oops.
oops, who
Yeah,
cares?
I shouldn't have. I didn't legally kill him because he didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
But,
Your
but I
dad
did
ran into my
anyway.
sword.
But I did.
He ran into my
But-
sword 6 times.
Yeah, so Ruth I has, like, a moment of, like, feeling remorse about this, and she hugs Crypto, and like she thinks on her father, but that she doesn't mourn him, right? Like, she does not mourn her father. There's on her planet, Gentleman Death is who comes for you, and, like, her mother always said that, like, you welcome him at your table because he is a guest. And so Ruth I tries to live up to that, right?
Okay.
Meanwhile, up in space, Kara's having a hard time because she just got, like, hit with everything.
She got a full barrage.
Yeah. So she essentially gets hit back into atmosphere. It warms her, and she has this moment where she remembers her dad when she would come home sometimes to their apartment, and that, like, there was a, like, I guess a grill of some kind in the apartment, and he would have it up too high, and it would make it the laser grill. It would raise the temperature of the whole apartment, and he'd be like, oh no, and he'd, like, turn it off, and, like, he'd be like, okay, don't tell your mother. And, like, what she loved about that was that, like, they had a secret, and she's like, but now they're all gone. So who can I tell my secret to? Like, that they had this secret between the two of them that, like, her mom could never find out. And it's like, it's sad. And so then she wakes back up, heads back, because they have to reload. And they're running low on Kryptonian killing measures, right?
Right.
Sal loves this panel. I do too. Look at, like, how they portray the weight of her landing on this ship.
Yeah.
And that's when, like, the fight happens. Like, the big one-on-one. Like, everybody from the ship grabs their favorite weapons, and they all jump into the fray, and they're trying to take down Supergirl, and they're doing the thing. They're all attacking at once.
Right.
You know what they say?
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
one, they all
that's
attack
a
at
smart
once.
move.
They're all just attacking at once, right? Unfortunately, they did manage to afford to get some kryptonite.
Oh.
And so they made some, like, whips or, like, ropes out of it, chains in a sense, and they are able to, like, lash her down essentially.
I was wondering why she's not using laser vision, or heat vision, but I guess the kryptonite is inhibiting
Yeah,
it.
I suppose.
Otherwise, she just slice him in
Or
half.
potentially too, like, there's part of her that's just like, these people have caused so much destruction. She's almost like in a rage, and so
Right.
like there's something more visceral about actually punching
them
them with her
versus
own
just-
hand. Yeah,
just
using.
slicing them in half with
Yeah.
heat vision.
Also, it wouldn't be nearly as fun if we just saw her slice all of them in half with heat vision.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it would be no.
Yeah.
But it also turns out that they had enough to also make a kryptonite bullet,
Ah.
and so they're going to kill her. But Comet can hear her, right, and knows that something's up. And like that's when like Krem's like, oh yeah, like we all know what happened up there. Like, you know, pretty sure that like she's going down, right? And like Comet is like wants to leave but knows that he has to stay to protect Ruth. So he doesn't know what to do.
Right.
Yeah,
And
Comet's
like
conflicted.
Ruth's like, you have to go to her. Trust me. Like it's okay. Like I don't want to be. There's too much death like on my hands, like in a way, because of me, and I don't want Supergirls to be also on me. So like, please go, and you have to trust me. You have to absolutely trust me that I won't do this.
Okay.
And that's when Comet leaves, and she goes like, I don't know if you ever lied to a horse, but like you will feel a pang of guilt, but you'll get over it soon enough.
The most noblest of creatures, apparently.
Apparently, not for Ruth. So to wrap this all up, she does in fact have sword to Krem's neck. Meanwhile, I should have also mentioned that while Kara is on deck and they're holding her, she's saying like, please don't. And they're like, listen to her begging. Oh my gosh. Not realizing she's actually talking to Comet because she knows Comet's coming and she knows Comet can hear her. She's like, don't do this. Just stay where you are. And they're like, what? And then she says Comet, and that's when Comet arrives. And Comet arrives just in time to take the bullet
No!
for her, because she's like, I'll survive it, it'll be fine, and he just takes it right in the stomach.
No.
And then that happens.
Oh.
What?
So, okay. So Crypto, the super dog, one of his origins is that like Crypto was on the planet, and technically Cal's folks made 2 rockets. There was a larger one, but Crypto snuck into the other one and sent off. Ha ha ha! Isn't that funny? He killed somebody. And that like,
And he knew.
and that Beppo was an experimental rocket that was sent out first. That's how Beppo the super monkey exists. And Streaky is actually just a cat who was changed by kryptonite. Like he ended up actually somehow getting powers from it.
He's
And
not
so
Kryptonian.
no, but he is in a way now,
Because
right?
it's lucky, it's a cat.
And Comet, at least what I'm assuming Tom King's going by, the pre-crisis Comet, is actually a centaur from Earth who helped out. His name was Byron, and like he helped out Cersei by preventing her death, and so she gave him a potion to make him human. But oops, it wasn't oops all human. It was oops all horses.
Oops All Horses, the best new cereal from DC.
And then there's like some space time shenanigans that happen so that Comet can come into being at the same time that she's there. He's like somehow from the future. Time shenanigans. And inevitably there's these other shenanigans where like when a comet goes overhead, like a special comet, he's either there's a magic spell on him or there's a magic spell on the comet and it flies overhead like around the Earth, which I guess it happens a lot. He can become a man. And so actually there's a period of
Okay.
time where like she and Comet are dating.
Oh my god.
But let's ignore that and just
Oh
focus
my
on the fact
God.
that Tom King remembered that Comet's actually a centaur man. And so when he dies, he reverts back to being a man, and it's really sad.
A centaur man.
No, it's just a man this time.
Just a man.
Oh,
So they.
He finally got his wish.
Oh.
So like, I needed to point that out because it's actually a really beautiful moment that happens here. But like, if you don't know, you just accept it. Just let it go,
Right.
and it's fine.
Right. Forget
It's-
about that he was a
it's
centaur.
elegant
he was a
and it's
dude
beautiful
who
and
was
it's
a
sad.
horse.
Yeah, that's
And
fine.
he went back to being a dude.
Yeah, but like, Comet's not actually a horse.
Right.
he's not actually a horse.
He's not. Also,
He's actually a broom.
Cersei actually gave him magic powers too, based on the gods. That's why he's Kryptonian at all, because he has
Right.
like super flight and speed,
Right.
and he can actually communicate telepathically with her. So he does. That's how she knew. Anyway,
Oh, okay.
that's the straw that breaks Kara's back. That's it. So, like, she flies into a rage, and, like, I love this where they're like, too far?
Nah.
Oh no.
Did we go too far? She's like, that and beyond. So she proceeds to utterly annihilate these people. Meanwhile, on the planet, Ruthai has decided that, like, she's like, you know what? No. Like, because Krem's like, this isn't fair. You're basically doing what I did to your dad. Your dad was unarmed, and you're going to kill me unarmed?
He didn't reveal anything about Crypto's poison or nothing?
Nope, he's not going to help at all.
Yeah.
And so instead, like, she's like, you know what? You're right. And so she frees him.
Oh.
And he's like, this still isn't fair. You have a sword, and I have but my hands. And she's like, yeah, but you're older than I am and had more experience. And she's like, you know what? You're right. And so she puts the sword in between the two of them in the sand. And she's like, and what I've learned from, like, my experience with Supergirl is that, like, at times, not having a weapon is worth, like, the opportunity to take a man's, like, feet from him. And if you can take a sight, even better. So Krem lunges for it, so he's already on his feet, but he does get the sword, and then she kicks him in the face and kicks sand in his eyes.
Nice.
And then she's like, and honestly, this is where your old school arcade knowledge is going to come into play, because she's like, and once you find a weakness, just keep exploiting it. So she just keeps kicking him in the face
Nice.
until eventually he stops that, right?
Oh no, my one weak spot.
My face! And, you know, anywhere else you choose to kick me. But she's picked up a couple of tricks, and so inevitably she kicks him again in the face and he falls over, and she's able to get the sword from him by, like, biting into his arm. She's not afraid to fight dirty here.
Yeah.
So he looses the sword, and she's like, I won, and she proceeds to present to him a speech that she has worked on for quite some time. It comes to her easily, and upon that he tries to reach for the sword, and, like, she turns and she slices his fingers off.
Can you do her speech, but in Sal's Kingpin voice?
No. Oh, because she says, when I was but little. No,
When I was but a little girl.
yeah. She goes, like, she tells this whole story about her dad, and it's actually really rough.
Yeah.
But, like, also sweet, because, like, he talks about the monotony of his life, like, when he was, like, when he first started, like, his profession, essentially, like, every, you know, fall he'd go and sow the field with pebbles, and then when spring came he'd reap the rocks. And his back aching, and, like, it was a blur of misery and monotony, and at times he would stare up at the larger boulders and hope that they would fall on him and crush him and end it all.
Oh my God.
But then, like, he inevitably, like, the thing that saves him was, like, was thinking about her and, like, having her and, like, what that would be like, and her growing strong, and, like, you know what I mean? Like,
I finally have a daughter. I have all these idiot sons.
yeah,
Please just give me a daughter.
right? And, like,
Oh, thank God.
that essentially it was enough. And then she's like, and now it's time for you to die. And so she raises the sword up, she brings it down, and she can't do it. And so she keeps trying over and over and over again, and each time she can't do it. She can't bring her. She's like, "What's wrong with me?"
And it's not Kara from space just constantly blowing a little
No.
breeze and knocking it off course.
No, she's like, "What? Something's wrong with me." And then we see this amazing moment because it's, like, very Superman, Supergirl. You know, holding her.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
sense, it makes you think of that. It also makes you think of, like, you know, the Pieta. You know, there's a lot of, like, imagery that could be evoked from this image. It's beautiful. She descends from the heavens carrying the body of Comet, who Ruth's like,
Who's that guy?
You saved a brigand?
So she's like, this is Comet. This was Comet. There's no time to explain that. She does mention that, like, he told her that he was a man, but that, like, that because he loved her, and, like, she's like, not now. Like, the brigands have retreated.
The whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing. The brigands have retreated, and I will follow them later. But for right now, we're at the end, aren't we? And I like that because it's almost fourth world breaking, because we are. We are
yeah.
at the end of this. She starts heading towards Krem, and Krem's like, just, like, has gone into his own mind, and he's like, the brigands will save me. They're gonna save me. They're gonna comfort me. They're gonna slaughter you all, and they're gonna comfort me. And he's just holding his hand because, like, Krem's gone bye-bye.
Yeah.
Egon. So, like, she's just headed towards her, like, kind of dead-eyed. She's headed towards him, like, dead-eyed, and Ruth-Eye's like, but what about Crypto?
Right.
You're not gonna get the answer from him. And she's like, oh, Crypto? Oh no, Crypto's fine. Crypto's recovering on planet with the veterinarian. I just told you that because like I knew you weren't going to let this go and you were going to die, and so like I needed a reason for you to feel like you had to go with me, and so we went on this adventure together so that you would learn not to do this. But the fact is, like, the reason you couldn't learn it was because like what I needed you to learn was you had to stop like focusing on the death of your father and the vengeance of that, and that like you had to let it go, because it's like, you know, like, just like I can't continue to like dream about Krypton, you can't continue to dream about this. But the reason you couldn't learn that is because like I've never stopped dreaming about Krypton. So like you can't learn anything from me, so I'm just gonna kill him.
So it's a little hypocritical.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's just like, I'm sorry I wasted everyone's time.
Yeah.
Basically.
Like I thought that would be a good lesson, but
it's not, because like I'm not fit
possible.
to give you that lesson.
Yeah.
And that's when like as she like raises the sword up, like Ruthai from behind her just goes, I learned it. And like she says it like she doesn't even realize she's saying it, and then like she's screaming at her that like I learned it, like and she's surprised by the power of her own voice, and like she grabs her hand and like stays her from hitting him, and then we see like a little like recap of like their adventures together, and that like, you know, like when you were stabbed, like when you were shot like all those times and you had no right to keep fighting, you still did, and like when you taught me to, like gently to wash my hands and to care for myself, and like you cared for me in that sense. Or like when I found true evil on Maypole, or when you buried all those people, or when even in the face of like agonizing pain, you found your strength and defended us. And like you did the impossible by racing to the end of the galaxy on Comet. You know, like you have shown me that there is like kindness beyond that, because like I thought that like when my father died, there was no kindness in this world. There was no generosity, and you single-handedly showed me that there is. Like this was the moment that when I privately have read this made me cry, because Tom King also wrote this in a sense for his daughter. And like as much as it is hyper violent and scary at times, there is definitely a message of female empowerment in this, and it doesn't beat you over the head, but there is a moment here that is directly speaking to every woman, to every young woman and every young girl out there, and it is something that like resonated with me so much so. Worlds will live and die, evil will carve its name into the innocent, good people will do good acts and suffer all the same, like it doesn't matter what you do. And then she goes, and everywhere girls will be born with their eyes open to the hate ahead of them, and they will wonder if their voice will be heard above the screams. And that like the point is that we know that Supergirl's out there. And I was like, damn you, Tom King. That's amazing. This is so freaking good, and it's just so beautiful and meaningful. Ruthai stays her hand, and basically it's like Ruthai's like, enough killing's been done, now let's figure out what punishment does befall him, like what we will do with him. And then Supergirl echoes what Ruthai said to her back on Maypole, and she says, it's too big and we're too small. And you're like, oh, that's so sad, right? Now we cut to the future. Like hundreds of years in the future.
What?
Oh.
Ruthai's still alive, but she's an old woman. And Supergirl comes to visit her, and Krypto's with her. So don't worry.
Yay.
Did the dog die? No.
No. The horse
Who's
died.
never gonna die?
The centaur died.
The horseman died.
Yeah.
But Krypto did not die. Which, thank you, Tom King. Because seriously, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So Supergirl goes to visit Ruthai and mentions she's like, it's time, and that like she's like, where do you want to do it? And she's like, over there. And she's like, on that hill over there. And Supergirl's like, oh, where it first began. She's like, there's no beginnings and endings, but that's where we're going to do it. But yes, it is exactly where it all began, right? She's like, she also mentions that Supergirl's like, I read your book, so that's what we've been reading, right?
Right.
Ruthai like says like, it's a bunch of like fictitious bullshit, but it's not, right? It clearly is not. She's like, I don't know why I wrote it in the first place, because Ruthai is that kind of person. She's like a hardened person. That's just who her personality is. So she's like, she doesn't want accolades like that. But she's like, I really wish I had told what happened, like what really happened. So what we're talking about is the ending.
Okay.
Which we'll get to. We're very specifically talking just about that part, right? So anyway, what they're actually doing there is that Kara has like a Phantom Zone thing, And so like they are going to release Krem. That's where Krem has been. And she mentioned, she's like, you know,
course.
for the first
Okay.
100 years, he screamed and yelled about his trial and how unfair it was and for him to be there. And in the second 100 years, he seemed to really kind of go introspective and evaluate himself and actually started to like know all of his victims. And like he may have actually made real change. You know, there's always hope.
So their species of
Clearly
beings
is-
lives a couple hundred years.
Yes,
Okay.
clearly. But like she's clearly like
Because they're both still alive after 200
and quite
years.
old. But he was
Okay.
in the Phantom Zone, so it's a little different.
Yeah. He's still really old though.
Yeah, Krem is released, and he's like, "Is it over?" And they're like, "Yep, you're free." And like he immediately is like, "Oh my gosh, like you saved me," and like saved him not only from the Phantom Zone, but I think also from himself. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
kind of neat, right? He's come to that realization, and then he sees Ruth Eye, and he just begs for her forgiveness, and she takes his cane and she whacks him in the head. He doesn't die, although for some people did think that she'd killed him. No,
Yeah.
she just knocks him out and they leave. She's like, "Screw you! I'm not forgiving you." And then we get the end of her book. And the end of her book is Supergirl saying, "It's too big," she said, "and we're too small." And then, like in her book, Supergirl kills Krem. Supergirl had specifically asked her to change the book because of the fact that she didn't want the brigands coming after Ruth Eye. So it was better for them to just never know what happened to him. So by saying that, like, or it was better to know what happened to him if he
Yeah.
died. They're
Yeah,
like, let
because
it
they're
go.
like, well, it's
Coming
over.
for him.
But like if they
Yeah.
didn't know, and like they like, you know, if she wrote that he was in the Phantom Zone, they'd never stop.
Right.
And so like it preserved her family and it preserved her way of life. But she hates that she had a lie. But that's it. That's the end of Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Now, if you think that part of this sounds like True Grit, a little bit. But enough of it's different. A lot of people, I heard some
Yeah.
criticism, people being like, it's just a ripoff of True Grit. I'm like, the first issue, maybe. But if you stopped at the first issue, you did yourself a disservice, and I feel really bad for you.
Yeah.
Because you didn't read the rest of this. This book has become easily one of my favorites. If not my favorite comic in a really long time. I've liked a lot of books, and there's a lot of books that I really, really like, but this one means something to me, and I feel like I am a bettered person when I read it. Like I have it is like it's an experience. It's like going to a museum in a sense.
It's cathartic.
Like, well, it's cathartic, but it's also like we're going to a museum and seeing a piece of art. Like you feel changed afterwards, and that's how this book made me feel when I read it the first time and the second time. So yeah,
Nice.
what do you guys think?
That's a cool story.
Right?
I definitely want to read this one.
Well, we're getting the trade.
It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
We're getting that trade.
Emotional.
Even if it is very
Yeah.
emotional. It's a beautiful story, and
It's
so
very dark.
it is. But
It's,
trust
like,
me,
super
it's
dark.
super dark, and I really focus on that. And I am sorry about that, but trust me, it's in the language, and it's in Ruth's perspective on Supergirl and what she brings to the table. And even if at the end it seems like she's given up, she always has hope. And that is one of the last things. Like when Supergirl says, like, Krem has changed, like, you know, maybe there's still hope. Like there's still hope in this world. And like it's funny because Ruth says, like, Krem might have changed, girl, but not you. Like saying, like, you've always been like this. You've always been hopeful, and she can't lose that. Even if
I'm gonna clock him though with my cane.
yeah, I'm
though.
gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. But like, so even if Kara has the hope, there's always that other part of that edge from her past experiences.
Yeah.
So yes, is this technically dealing with some sort of trauma? Yes, it's a very different story, and we are not dealing with the typical Tom King. There's a mystery afoot.
Right.
Like this is just
Not
a story.
Really a mystery at all.
No,
yeah.
not at all. And
It's
Pretty
linear.
straightforward. Yeah.
it is very
There's
linear.
a couple flashbacks, but not.
Yeah, no, it's very
It's like
straightforward.
appropriate
Yeah.
flashbacks.
Yes, very appropriate.
And it's not
flashbacks.
like that entire learning about the history of, you know, Krypton and what Kara
Nope.
went through
It's-
was just its own issue and there weren't other things.
No.
It was sprinkled in.
It was
made
sprinkled
sense.
in, and like it is. I love that issue. I love that issue so much. It is so beautiful and tragic, and the art is almost worth the admission alone.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's fantastic.
But seriously, like Tom, in my opinion, outdid himself. For Sal, right now, he's like Human Target is his favorite book. I'm gonna read Human Target. I haven't yet because like I've been like living in this like glow of this book. And I have no doubt that I'm going to love that book, and it'll also be a beautiful piece of prose. But this is like I don't think he'll do better for me than this book personally, just because it's just maybe it's the 8 issues because it's a little tighter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like It's just,
Yeah, it doesn't have the bloat that kind of creeps into Tom King books.
Yeah, occasionally like
not that that's bad.
It's not.
But
It's not always as indulgent.
Kind of slow down, and this seems like it does not slow down.
Yeah, this is less filler.
Yes, but he's also able to use the narration, which for some people you're gonna look at this sometimes and you'll be like, there are so many words here.
There's a lot of words.
There's a lot of words here, but every single one of these is worth reading.
Yeah.
Every single word in this book is worth reading.
You're gonna like reading the words in this book.
You are. I'm telling you.
You know what's interesting? There's a lot of words there as a critique I sometimes make of books.
Yeah.
But when the art is this good,
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me so much. Like when I see a page of art that's just fine and there's words all over it, I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Why am I reading all this crap?
No,
but this is
this work
it's
is
gorgeous.
transcendental. It is so.
The lettering is also really good too. Like it's not
Clayton
a chore
Cowles,
to look at.
No, Clayton Cowles is Tom King's letterer, so he knows how to deal with Tom King's wordiness at times.
Yeah.
And again, this is a return to that narration style. I think he uses it 100% appropriately because it definitely helps you to get into the mind of these characters. And I love the storytelling from. It's not quite a Let's Go Back, but we're getting future Ruth looking back on this, which I think is more valuable than having the young girl Ruth telling us the story, because Ruth from the future has had an opportunity to grow and mature and to learn from this experience, and I kind of love that. It's just so good. So seriously, if you didn't read this book, please go pick up the trade, because I don't think we're ever going to see this in hardcover, and it's just because DC doesn't believe in Supergirl, and if anything, they should believe in this book. I think it's a stunning story from page 1 to page whatever this ends on. whatever the trade ends on, from issue 1 to issue 8, it's just exquisite. It's exquisite. I love it. Get your copy today. You won't be disappointed. Asterisk.
And if you're disappointed, send that copy to us.
Yeah,
And if you're disappointed, you have terrible taste, and I don't care about that. So,
Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Tiffany.
I'm Ethan.
I'm Ben.
Bye. So the other version of him, the other version of Comet, is he is a 3 fingered centaur alien man who can also
Like Bill?